Hello students, this is Prathamesh Mane and today we will be continuing the chapter gravitation. So in the previous lecture, we saw about Newton's law of gravitation, we saw about the universal constant of gravitation which was the capital G, and the value of capital G is 6.67 into 10 power minus 11 Newton meter per kilogram square. These were the concepts which we learned in the previous lectures, and today we will be going on with a new topic, that is magnitude of centripetal force. So students, what is centripetal force? Well, centripetal force, we have learned about centripetal force in this chapter in the beginning as well. So we will be just revising some concepts. What is centripetal force? Centripetal force is nothing but it is a force which acts towards the center of the object in a circular motion. In a circular motion, and the object at the center pulls the object towards itself. That force is nothing but centrifugal force. I'll represent this force in this diagram by CF. So CF here means nothing but centripetal force. Fine. Yeah. So centripetal force is nothing but the force which acts towards the center in a uniform circular motion. And centripetal force is the force which always helps in circular motion. Now we'll just try to find out what this force, what the value of this centripetal force is. Consider this centripetal force to be F. Consider the value of the centripetal force to be F. Well, consider the mass of this object. Mass of this object as M. Mass as M. Let the velocity of this object or the speed of this object be V. And this distance, that is this distance, let it be R. R is the radius of the circle and it is the distance from the center of the circle towards the object. Let R be the distance from the center of the circle towards the object, that is the radius of the circle. So what will be the value of M? The value of M will be mv square by R. Well, this is something which we have learned in the previous standards. Just remember this concept, as we might have some numericals based on this formula. So I would like if you note down this formula. Okay, so we move on to the next concept related to centripetal force. Well, now what we do is we consider that this orbit, that this is an orbit of a planet. We consider the orbit of a planet to be circular and this remains the sun. So now what is our consideration, students? Let me erase everything. Yeah. So now we consider this as the sun, right? And this as any planet. I'll name it as P. So P here is planet and this is the sun, and this whole circle, this circle is nothing but it is the orbit. So we assume the orbit to be circular, although we know it's elliptical. We assume it to be circular. So the planet revolves around the sun in a circular orbit. We make this assumption. We all know that this circular orbit, the perimeter for this orbit. Now students, what is the shape of the orbit? Well, the shape of the orbit is the circle. So we know perimeter of a circle is nothing but 2 pi r. What is perimeter of circle also known as? Yeah, the perimeter of circle is also known as the circumference of the circle. So we know the formula for circumference of a circle is 2 pi r. So the perimeter for this orbit will be 2 pi r. Let us consider the distance from the sun to the planet. This distance, let us consider this to be r, as this will be the radius of the circle. And well, we assume the time taken, that is the period of revolution, let it be t. Then what do we get? Well, we get that velocity, that is the velocity of this planet. You can see the planet is moving. This velocity of the planet is equal to distance traveled upon time taken. Well, this is a very basic concept. I think everyone must be knowing that speed or velocity is equal to distance upon time. Speed is equal to distance upon time. Here v represents speed and not velocity. Speed is equal to distance upon time. So what is the distance covered here, students? The distance covered here is 2 pi r, that is the perimeter of the orbit or the perimeter of the circle or the circumference of the circle. What is the distance? It is 2 pi r. And time taken, what is the time taken? Time taken is t. So the value of v is 2 pi r by t. This is the formula which I used earlier for the for the centripetal force part. So centripetal force, previously just 5 minutes before we discussed that centripetal force will be equal to mv square by r. So here mv square by r, but v, the value of v, we just calculated the value of v, which is 2 pi r t. So we substitute the value of v here and we get 2 pi r the whole square by t the whole square multiplied by m and divided by r. And after opening the brackets and squaring the terms, we find the answer to be 4m pi square r upon t square. Okay. After this, what we do is we multiply the numerator and the denominator by r square. Now, what is, you might ask, what is the reason for multiplying and dividing this by r square? Well, in the previous step, if you see, we have a t square term here. And if you remember quite accurately, then in the previous lecture, during the Kepler's laws of motion, we had learned in the third law that t square upon r cube is equal to k, which is a constant. So by multiplying by r square, what we can do is we can convert this r term into cube so that we will get t square by r cube or r cube by t square, and we can substitute that term with the help of a constant. So that is why we multiply by r square. After multiplying by r square, as I spoke just now, t square upon r cube, or we have the inverse here, that is r cube upon t square. Now, as we know that t square upon r cube is a constant, right? T square upon r cube is a constant. So tell me, students, what will be r cube upon t square? Yeah, correct. R cube upon t square will be 1 upon k. Okay. So we do the following substitution and we get the answer as F, that is centripetal force, is equal to 4m pi square upon r square k, where k is nothing but t square upon r cube. Now, if you look closely at this equation, 4m pi square k is a constant. Why is it a constant? Well, the mass will always be the same, right? Then pi, the value of pi is 22 upon 7 or 3.14. It is a constant. K is, everyone knows k is a constant. We had learned about this k in Kepler's third law. So k is a constant. And well, 4 is a numeral and all the numerals are constants. So this whole thing, 4m pi square and k, all these 4 terms are constant. So when we find constant, F is equal to constant multiplied by 1 upon r square. Or we can even write this equation as F is proportional to 1 upon r square. Or the best way to write this is F is inversely proportional to r square. What does this imply? This implies that when the value of, well, this is inverse proportion. And what does inverse proportion imply? When the value of one quantity increases, the quantity of the value of the other quantity decreases. What does this mean? If the radius or the value of radius decreases, the value of force increases. If the value of radius increases, the value of force decreases. The force which we are speaking about is the centripetal force. Remember, it is centripetal force. So here, if the radius, that is the distance between the planet and the sun, if it increases, then the planet requires lesser centripetal force. What do we understand from this? If the planet is farther away from the sun, it will require lesser centripetal force. If the planet is closer to the sun, it will require more centripetal force. Okay, so this was a small derivation. I hope you understood, and this is a quite important derivation. You need to know this derivation. This derivation could be asked in the exams. So I think I guess you should be knowing about this derivation. Well, this much information is enough for this derivation. So remember, with the help of this derivation, Newton suggested that if the distance, that is the distance between the planet and the sun, is lesser, the magnitude of centripetal force is more. If the distance between the planet and the sun is greater, the magnitude of centripetal force is lesser. Now we move on to another interesting concept, that is low tides and high tides. Well, what are low tides and high tides? In the rainy season, generally, there is a high alert that today at this time at 4 p.m. there will be a high tide. So do not stay close to the seashores. Well, what happens at high tide? The level of the water increases. If normally the level is this, at high tide the level will be slightly above, that is 4 to 5 meters above. So at the seashores, at the beaches, at the seashores, it can be quite risky. Well, how does this take place? Well, this is another application of gravitational force. Here, the gravitational force of the moon and the earth combinedly take part, as well as there is some theory of centrifugal force as well. We'll discuss everything step by step. Well, what is low tide and high tide? The level of seawater on the seashore increases and decreases twice a day, as I suggested. The level of the water increases or it decreases. High tides and low tides occur at different times at different places. Well, high tides and low tides do not occur at the same time at a place. If high tide is taking place at some place, then at the other side or at the other part of the earth, low tide will take place. Never it happens that high tide and low tide occurs at the same time. Okay, yeah. Well, as I discussed, this concept is also based on gravitational force. Now, how is it based on the gravitational force? Well, you might agree low tide is based on gravitational force, but why high tide? Right? Why is high tide based on gravitational force? Well, gravitational force, what is gravitational force? Everything gets pulled towards the earth, right? So why would you say that high tide depends on gravitational force? Well, high tide depends on gravitational force, not of the earth, but of the moon. High tide is caused due to the gravitational force of the moon. Due to the gravitational force of the moon, the level of water increases. It gets pulled towards the moon, and this causes high tide. At the same time, when the high tide is taking place, at the same time, at 90 degrees from the place of high tide, you will observe low tide taking place. Why does this occur? Because the water is getting pulled towards the moon, as a result of which at 90 degrees, the water is getting pulled. As a result, the earth pulls the water back, and so the level of water goes down, and as a result, low tide takes place at this position. While at 180 degrees Celsius from the place of high tide, at 180 degree, what does this mean? If the high tide is taking at this corner of the earth, 180 degrees is totally the opposite corner. Like India is from USA, that is 180 degrees, and 90 degrees is India and North Pole. So if high tide is taking place in India, then at North Pole it will be low tide, and if high tide is taking place at the North Pole, then it will be low tide in India. Similarly, if high tide is taking place in India, then it will be low tide. It will be high tide in America as well. Now, another question: why does high tide take place at 180 degrees? Well, that is due to centrifugal force. What is centrifugal force? Centrifugal force is nothing but the force which pulls the object outside. In a circular motion, it tries to pull the object outside. Centripetal is the force towards the center. Centrifugal is the force which pulls the object out of the which tries to pull the object out of the circle. So that centrifugal force during the revolution of the earth, that centrifugal force, when the object rotates or revolves around the sun, that centrifugal force tries to push the water outside, and that is the result we find high tide taking place. Well, I have a picture which will give you a better implication. See here. High tide is taking place at this position, right? At this position, high tide is taking place. You can see the gravitational force of the moon is trying to pull the water towards itself, and that is why we observe high tide here. Exactly 90 degrees, exactly 90 degrees to this position, we find low tide, and exactly at 180 degrees, we find high tide. Now this earth is revolving in an elliptical orbit, so centrifugal force might apply on the earth, and as a result of the centrifugal force, the force tries to push the water out, and that is why we find high tide on this side, while on this side the moon gravitational force, the gravitational force of the moon pulls the water towards itself, and so we find high tide here. Low tides on these two are because they are on the 90 degrees to the high tide location, so the water gets pulled this way, and that is why these sides experience low tide. I hope low tides and high tides is clear to you. Well, we move on to the next concept, that is Earth's gravitational force. What is the Earth's gravitational force? Well, Earth's gravitational force is nothing but basically gravity. What is gravity? Gravity is nothing but attracting every object towards itself. The Earth attracts every object towards itself, and that is the gravitational force. Well, the center of the mass of the Earth is situated at its center. The center of the mass of the Earth is situated at its center. So gravitational force of any object is always directed towards the center. What does this mean? Almost a lot of mass of the Earth is at the center, right? All the mass of the Earth is at the center, at the core of the Earth. So everything on the Earth is directed towards the center. What does this mean? If I drop something at this moment, it will go vertically straight downwards. Fine. If I drop something, it will go vertically straight downwards. That is what it means. Gravitational force is always directed to the center of the Earth. So that is why everything goes vertically downwards straight, because it is directed towards the center of the Earth. Because of this force, an object falls vertically downward on the Earth. See, this is a better representation. See, the objects here, this is a stone and this is an elephant. These are falling vertically downwards on the Earth. See, they follow a straight path, right? See, they are following this path. It's a straight path, right? It does not happen that the stone is falling like this. It goes in the middle in the air, again comes back, again goes up, again comes back, and does a non-uniform motion like a butterfly and comes down. No, this kind of path does not take place, right? What happens is simply it travels in a straight line. Well, we have one more concept related to the Earth's gravitational force. Well, I think a lot of boys must have tried out. You throw a ball up in the air, fine. You try throwing it with the utmost force, with the full force. It might go to some extent and again it comes down, right? Why does this happen? Why does nothing go straight up? Why does everything which is thrown upwards comes down? Well, that is due to gravitational force. Anything which is thrown up, it goes up to some extent and afterwards it comes down again, and that is due to gravity. While you guys might have a question, then why do rockets escape the Earth and go to some other planet? Well, rockets they try to attain a speed which can escape the gravitational force. They try to defy the gravitational force, and in that way, they try to escape the atmosphere, the gravitational field of the Earth. That is why rockets are able to go into outer space, go outside the atmosphere of the Earth. Well, that speed is not attainable by human beings. That speed can be attained only by machines. So generally, when we throw any object in the air, even if it goes like 20 to 30 floors above, it will come down at some point because of the gravitational force. Now we do another two important concepts today remaining. One is acceleration due to gravity, that is small g, and another concept is the derivation of this small g, that is the value of this small g. First, we will do acceleration due to gravity. What is acceleration due to gravity? Well, Newton's second law of motion. We have revised the Newton's second law of motion in the first lecture. In this sentence, it is given in a simplified form. Force acting on a body results in its acceleration. Quite simple. When a force is applied on a body, the body gets accelerated. That is, the body gains momentum. Momentum means nothing but the body gains acceleration. You might say today you are saying acceleration. In the previous lecture, you said momentum. Well, momentum is the same thing for acceleration. A body attaining gaining acceleration is nothing but the body is in momentum. Thus, gravitational force due to the Earth on the body results in acceleration. Yeah, gravitational force. Well, how does gravitational force result in acceleration? Well, I'll explain it in a better way. Yeah, in this previous one. See, what I just told you guys was, if you throw a ball in the air, fine. See, I threw a ball. This is a ball. I threw it in the air. Wait just a second. Let me draw it correctly. Yeah, I threw the ball in the air. Now it will reach some point, right? At this point, the ball stops, right? The ball stops moving upwards and it starts rolling downwards. It starts coming downwards. Now, if you guys have experienced this, the speed of the ball when it is coming downwards starts increases. And the time it reaches at a certain point, the speed has increased here at this point, at the point above. Here the velocity is 0, right? Because the direction is changing. The ball reaches a certain point and then it changes direction. The velocity is 0. But as it comes down, when you get to catch it back, the speed of the ball has increased. When you catch the ball, you feel a force on your hands. Well, why is that? That is due to gravitational acceleration. Well, gravity is a force. So while pulling, the object tends to accelerate. The object tends to accelerate, and this is nothing but acceleration due to gravity. Even in this picture, we can see the stone falls, right? But the speed will not be the same when it was dropped. If you drop something, observe this, if you drop something, it will come down and it will attain some speed. If the object is elastic, if the object absorbs force like a ball or something, if you drop it and you do not catch it, it touches the ground and it bounces back, which means it has attained some velocity. Where does this velocity come from? Well, this is the answer: acceleration due to gravity. Gravity gives acceleration to the body. The gravitational force due to the Earth on the body results in acceleration. Well, this is called acceleration due to gravity and is denoted by small g. Well, students, one point, a very important one. The small g, this small g is acceleration due to gravity, and this capital G, you guys make a lot of mistakes. You tend to get confused with the small g and the capital G because both of them have constant values. This small g is acceleration due to gravity. Capital G is universal gravitational constant. Value of capital G, remember, 6.67 into 10 power minus 11 Newton meter per kilogram square. Okay, remember this. Remember this. G, capital G is universal gravitational constant. I'll write it in short, universal gravitational constant, or you can even remember it as UCG, that is universal UGC. I'm sorry, I'm really sorry. This is UGC, that is universal. Yeah, universal gravitational constant, that is UGC. You can remember it in this short form. And the capital and the small g is acceleration due to gravity. Yeah, don't make mistakes in this. Well, acceleration is a vector quantity. What is vector quantity? Vector quantity is something which has direction as well as it has direction. Scalar quantity does not have direction. Vector quantity has a value and a direction as well. Like acceleration, why is it a vector quantity? Well, when you accelerate something, it has to be in the same direction of the motion, right? Like when you are accelerating in the car, or when you are accelerating your cycle, your bicycle, it should be in the same direction of motion. Applying force against the direction of motion will reduce the speed, and that will be deceleration. So acceleration is a vector quantity. Now we try to derive the small value of small g. For that we need some formulas. Well, this is F, that is force, that is gravitational force, which is G m upon r square. Well, we have learned this already, G m1 m2 upon r square. And this is the regular formula of force. Force is mass into acceleration. Well, this formula is force is equal to ma, where m is mass and a is acceleration. Now m here is mass and a is acceleration. G here is acceleration due to gravity. That is why in this formula we have replaced this with g, and m is the mass. Yeah, we continue. Well, from these two formulas we can conclude that both the formulas equal to the same thing, that F is equal to G m capital M small m upon r square, and F is equal to mg. Here mg will be equal to G capital M small m upon r square. We cancel now in this step, students, you can figure out that this capital small m's can be cancelled out, and we get something as small g is equal to capital G m upon r square. So the value of acceleration due to gravity, is capital G m upon r square. Now with the help of this formula, we try to find out the value of G on the surface of the earth. Well, this is the earth, and r is the radius of the earth. Remember these values. R is radius of the earth, m is the mass of the earth. Just a second. R is radius of earth. I'll just write this as radius, and this is mass. These two are again constant values, and you need to remember these values, as in the exam for the numericals you might not be given these values, and examiners expect you to remember these values. So the radius of the earth is 6.4 into 10 power 6 meters. Mass of the earth is 6 into 10 power 24 kilograms. So what was the value of small g in the previous slide? Yeah, it was Gm upon r square. So we input all the values. The G, capital G, is universal gravitational constant, which is 6.67 into 10 power minus 11. Then m is mass of the earth, which is 6 into 10 power 24 kilograms, and r is the radius of the earth, which is 6.4 into 10 power 6 meters. So here r square, that is why 6.4 into 10 power 6 the whole square. Then we further solve to find this as 10 power 12. This is 10 power 24. 6.67 into 10 power minus 11 into 6 into 10 power 24 upon 40.96, that is 6.4 square. When we square 6.4, we get the value as 40.96 multiplied by 10 power 12. Now we bring the 10 power 12 term in the numerator. So when we bring the 10 power 12 term in the numerator, it becomes 10 power minus 12. Now we multiply these three terms, 10 power minus 11, 10 power minus 12, and 10 power 24. First, we multiply 10 power minus 12 with 10 power 24. First, we multiply 10 power minus 12 with 10 power 24. What do we get? 24 minus 12. By laws of indices, 24 minus 12, we get 10 power 12. Now we multiply 6.67 into 6, and at the same time we multiply 10 power 12, that is 10 raised to 12 and 10 raised to minus 11. By the laws of indices, we get this as 10 raised to 1, or anything raised to 1 is nothing but the number itself, so we write here only 10, and 6.67 into 6. Now 6.67 into 6 is approximately 40.02 multiplied by 10. So when we multiply 40.02 into 10, we get the value as 400.2. And this is all divided by 40.96. After dividing this 400.2 by 40.96, we get the value approximately as 9.77. This approximate value is approximated to the first decimal, and we use this value as g is equal to 9.8 meters per second. We approximate, use the approximation, and we approximate the value to the first decimal. So the value becomes 9.8, and we use this value, that is g is equal to 9.8 meters per second for all the calculations. And this is the value of gravitational acceleration, or acceleration due to gravity on the surface of the earth. So at this moment, wherever you are sitting, standing, sleeping, the earth is pulling, or you are being accelerated to the surface of the earth with the force 9.8 meter per second square. When you jump from somewhere, your body, that is your whole body, starts accelerating towards the surface of the earth with an acceleration of 9.8 meter per second square. So this is a very important value. This is a very important derivation, and this is a very important concept which you need to understand. Again, I'll like to bring the point about small g and capital G. Value of small g is 9.8 meters per second. Value of capital G 6.67 into 10 power minus 11. It is mentioned here. I'll write it again for you guys. 6.67 into 10 power minus 11. What were the units? Yeah, Newton meter per kilogram square. Yes. So remember this concept, value of small g and value of capital G. Small g is acceleration due to gravity. Value for the same is 9.8 meters per second. Value for capital G is 6.67 into 10 power minus 11 Newton meter per kilogram square. Capital G is universal gravitational constant. Small g is acceleration due to gravity. I hope everything is understood by the students, and everything is clear for this lecture. So today we'll end the lecture with this concept, as I do not want to put a lot of load for your brains. I would not like to extend more. In the next lecture, we'll try to cover the more concepts related to G. the value of G changes according to altitude and depth and mass. We'll be learning the same in the next lecture. Till then, goodbye, take care, and do report your doubts in the comment section. Thank you.